Should start going off a different tone, like that one. And what? Like it's not like that. This one.
Quick.
Good evening, folks. We're going to get going here. Before we start our regular meeting, we have a couple of proclamations to give out. So we're going to ask Mr. Gibbons and Ms. Tormey if they could come up here to the bullpen here. So some of you may have heard that recently a gentleman had OD'd while in his car, and thanks to the efforts of these two good Samaritans here, they found him, they applied Narcan to him and CPR, and somebody that might not be with us today is because of their efforts. So because of that, we felt it was appropriate to honor them with some proclamations. So the proclamations state, whereas the City of Long Beach wishes to recognize those individuals and organizations that have contributed positively to the people and community at large. And whereas the City of Long Beach does desire to publicly acknowledge EMT Austin Gibbons and Kate Tormey, a Long Beach resident and registered nurse, in recognition of their actions on Long Beach Road and Park Avenue on Wednesday, January 1st, 2020, in which EMT Gibbons and Ms. Tormey were able to save the life of a 32-year-old Long Beach man who had overdosed in his car. And whereas EMT Gibbons and Ms. Tormey removed the man from his vehicle, administered Narcan and CPR, effectively saving the man's life. And now, and therefore, the City Council and the City Manager, in recognition of their exemplary service to the community, proudly present these proclamations to EMT Austin Gibbons and Kate Tormey.
before we begin, that Narcan training is very important. And I've just been reminded that there'll be some training at the VFW on February 26th in Long Beach, so please sign up. You never know when you will be called upon. Thank you.
Good evening, and welcome to the regular meeting of the Council of the City of Long Beach on Tuesday, January 7th, 2020 at 7 p.m. So roll call. Councilmember Delory.
Here.
Councilmember Mandel.
Here.
Councilmember Trustman.
Here.
Vice President McGinnis.
Here.
President Bendo. Let the record indicate the presence of Acting City Manager John Miranda and Acting Corporation Counsel Greg Tomlinson. Now the salute to the flag.
All right, folks, welcome to our first regular meeting of 2020 and the first meeting of your new city council. So we'll begin with our city manager's report.
Good evening, everyone, and Happy New Year. Before we begin, I'd like to offer congratulations to incoming council members Karen McGinnis, Liz Preston, and Mike Delory, as well as MacGyver. I'm looking forward to coordinating with you in whatever capacity the council desires, as well as Scott and John, as we work together to keep Long Beach moving forward. I'd also like to thank Acting Corporation Counsel Greg Tomlinson, Controller, and the residents for their diligent work on preparing the requisite materials for closing on our lease for garbage trucks and a plow truck. Since they were able to meet a preliminary deadline, the city was able to secure a more favorable interest rate, which will lead to a cost savings of approximately $50,000 over the life of the lease. Early this year, the city will embark on a major LED street lighting upgrade that is estimated to save more than $50,000 annually in energy and maintenance costs. Once completed, the city will have reached its goal of achieving 100% LED street lights throughout the community. Best of all, the project will come at zero cost to Long Beach taxpayers as it's funded entirely from two-state grants. There are approximately 739 street lights remaining throughout the city that are non-LEDs, most of which are induction fixtures, the older lighting technology that is less efficient. Upgrading these fixtures is estimated to deliver $37,055 in energy savings and $14,780 a year in maintenance savings, for a total annual savings of $51,835. The project is estimated to cost approximately $297,000. Last month, Governor Cuomo announced the New York State Consolidated Funding Application Awards. We were fortunate to be included with an award of $5 million for the water pollution control plant consolidation and $109,252 for a salt storage structure. As a reminder, we'll continue our project to divert wastewater from the existing plant to Bay Park sewage treatment plant. The piece of the project will construct 5,650 feet of pipe, helping to increase resilience against flooding and improve water quality by delivering wastewater to a larger and more advanced treatment facility. As for the salt storage, that facility will help prevent salt from entering the groundwater or stormwater system. Additionally, the World Surf League again received funds from CFA for an amount of $286,500, which is good for Long Beach because they will hold their longboard classic in Long Beach in 2020 again. The North Shore Bulkhead Project reconstruction meeting was held today in the new conference room of the OEM office. In attendance was Woodstock Construction, the Governor's Office of Storm Recovery, representatives from Tetra Tech and the city. We are pleased to report that mobilization will begin the week of January 13th and construction will commence the week of January 20th. As a precursor to mobilization, one of the contractors' barges was offloaded at Heron Street today. The notice will be going out to the impacted residents. On Monday, January 20th, the city's annual MLK commemorative march will step off from Walton Boulevard and Park Avenue at 11:30 a.m. and end at the MLK Center where a commemorative program and celebration will take place. The city's annual 4-mile snowflake race will be held on Saturday, February 1st. Registration begins at 6:30 a.m. on Long Beach Catholic Regional School, the gymnasium. The race begins at 9 a.m. Please call 431-3890 for more information. With the holidays behind us, we are asking residents to please help us recycle Christmas trees by placing them curbside on the same day as your garbage pickup, Monday and Thursday in the East End, Tuesday and Friday in the West End. Christmas trees will be collected separately from regular garbage and will be taken away to be recycled and mulch. Please make sure to remove all ornaments and decorations. For more information on sanitation and recycling, visit www.longbeachny.gov/sanitation. Finally, as everyone can see, the AV lift was installed to provide access to the dais here. On behalf of the city, I would like to commend the beach maintenance department for their efforts in making this happen. Specifically, I'd like to thank, and I want to make sure I miss anybody, Tommy Cannon, Pat Matthews, Billy McCarthy, Ryan Donnelly, Ryan Sullivan, Sean Deloche, Shawnee O'Neill, Tommy Stenlock. You know, these names I should look at. Thank you. Sean Hussein and Chris King and Maureen Walsh for all their efforts in ordering and getting the lift in place. And also the added attraction of really cleaning up our front dais wall. It really came out nice, and the stain goes on a little even nicer. We'd also really need to thank Cliff Student and Harvey Wiesenberg for the generosity. And at this time, I would ask Senator Wiesenberg to come up, and Liz Treston has a few words to say, and I'm sure Harvey will have a few words also.
I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak. I just would like to start by letting everybody here know that God gave me an angel, a saint, and a mission in my life. The angel is my special child, the saint is my wife, and the mission was for me to be able to do the best that I can do to help families and people with disabilities, but all people. And I got a phone call from somebody from Long Beach, and they said they need help. And I'm not speaking because myself, because I want the world to know, and I made the world know in the state of New York, up in Albany, that there is no city in this world like our city. That the love that is here, the diversity of our population, and the love that we have for each other, and the support that we have in our city cannot be matched anywhere. And anybody who ever needed help, all we had to do was either go to the East End, the West End, North Park, anywhere, and say, we need help. And this city would get together and do what had to be done, whether it's building the Catholic school, fixing the black church that burned down, but any aspect of life or quality of life, when somebody's in trouble, the people in the city of Long Beach utilize our wonderful natural resources that God gave us, our boardwalk, our beaches, to raise funds to be able to help people. And that's what Long Beach is all about. And I just feel, when I get a phone call from somebody that says, I need help, and I said, whatever you need, you'll have. Let's see, how can we do the best we can do? So I have a fund that's for people with special needs. And when somebody calls, I do anything for anybody in the state of New York, and we get things done. And I want you to know that this is a feeling that we, and I feel this way, anybody that I ever met in my life is part of our family, and that's what Long Beach is all about. And everybody here, as I said, with the diversity in our population, people love and care for each other. And we can say proudly, because everybody who comes down and utilize our resources for fundraising, and who's doing all the work? Our staff. And people just don't understand. I mean, we're a small city. Now we're the place to be in the county of Nassau. People are coming down utilizing our resources. And our workforce is out there doing everything they can to help those people be successful, but they still have their job to do here. And how hard our people work. Because I'm around all the time, and I know from morning to night that our staff are the most wonderful, dedicated people. They live here, they care about what's here, and they dedicate their lives to public service. So I just wanted the public to say thank you and God bless you, because there aren't better workers than the ones that we have in our city. who run public office, I say, be careful for what you wish for. Because the reality is, the challenge is there. Your ability to work together is the key to success. I'm sharing this in a public thing. I really am not bragging about it, but about a month ago in Albany, in the New York State Senate and in the New York State Assembly honored me for 67 years of public service. What happened when people spoke, when we had all the Democrats and Republicans saying positive things about the things that we've accomplished for people? I didn't do this by myself, because when we get up and politics takes over Albany, when I passed the bill to get $90 million back in the budget that the governor took out for mental health, and I made him put it back, and I made a speech on the floor on YouTube, and I said, it's not my bill, it's your bill. You're the voice of those who have no voice. When you work together, you take credit for this legislation. And that doesn't happen in Albany, but it happened. And I want you to know the success that we had was amazing. And I'm asking you to think about what we have in Long Beach. The politics, the anger, the violence, the hate. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. We are one family. We all live here. We have to work together, respect and give dignity to each other. You might have your differences, but the only way we're going to have any kind of progress is by working together. So I say, God bless you, good luck in your endeavors, and thank you for the privilege of being here. I just want to acknowledge Cliff Student and Curb. I think of Curb, Citizens United to remove barriers. I think about all the things that we had that I used to brag about in Albany. We have a curb cut on every street. We have modified ramps. We have special chairs that take people out on the beach, take them out of their chairs and bring them. They can spend the day at the beach with their families. We have any and every resource possible to be able to help people that are challenged. Now, the answer really is, I didn't do it by myself. We did. And the answer is, you have that opportunity. And I thank you, Liz, because, you know, I don't know if I showed you when you called me, you said, well, you know, the city doesn't. I said, I don't care about what the city has. I know what the people of Long Beach have, and you'll have our help and support. God bless you, and thank you for being here. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Everybody hear me?
Yeah.
No. Into the mic. Is that better, Philip? No. Thank you. No, I'm just okay. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So as we're going to learn, there'll be a lot of adaptations moving forward. And I want to thank the CSEA for doing a great job. I came up here practically every day to see how the work was going, and there is not one speck of dust. And it was dusty up here, and it's so amazing. You guys did a really great job. Thank you, Cliff. I did call. I was trying to think out of the box, and I didn't want the city to spend any money. And you said, oh, how much do you need? I was like, oh, well, I'm not quite sure. And thank you, Tommy, for getting the quote, and thank you, Maureen, and John, and again, everyone else.
I just want to introduce Cliff Student now, but we don't know who he is and his family. But I just want you to know that, you know, Surf for All is known nationally. I get thank you letters from all over the country for the things that we have on our beaches and what we do. And they're all from Long Beach people. Surf for All is not just about surfing. They actively participate in every aspect of life in Long Beach. So I just want to also acknowledge the Student family and Richard from West End from Curb. And again, thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, guys.
So before we get to the regular agenda, I just wanted to, you know, we've been, as a new council, here for 6 days now, so, you know, we're going to start, for lack of a better term, putting our mark on how we like to conduct ourselves. So we've made a few operational changes that I just wanted to make people aware of that we think are going to make us a more effective council. It's mostly related to just us getting information so we're better aware of what's going on. So things like we're not going to be getting drafts of the resolutions earlier than typically. We get them on Friday with the public. We're now going to probably get them on Wednesday evenings. That way, people like Scott Kemmons don't get inundated on Monday with emails from me asking, bombarding them with questions, since I don't see it until Friday night when I get home from work. So we'll get them a little early so we could put a little more time into looking at them. We're going to get more background information supporting the resolutions. We now get a daily update from the acting city manager, which is great. He created a great format that tells us each day what's going on in each department, so we're much more aware. This way we're not getting our news from social media, we're getting it from the source. We're going to be reviewing press releases before they're issued now. We're going to be getting regular updates now on capital projects and legal cases, just status, not details of what's going on. We'll be getting employment reports now that have more information so we understand why people are being appointed or promoted or things like that. Same with overtime. We're going to get some updated overtime sheets so we can better track what's going on with overtime. And then we implemented a few new items. We're going to be decoupling public hearings from voting on resolutions. So meaning we're not going to be voting on resolutions the same night as its public hearing. There may be some exceptions to that, items, for example, like if we waive off-street parking requirements, which is usually a minor routine thing. If there's no comments, there's no reason to keep the business waiting. So there may be some exceptions, but generally we will be not voting on items the same night we have a public hearing on it. The new thing we're instituting, we're going to start having public working meetings of the council. That will take place the second Thursday of each month at 7 p.m. here in City Hall. At the working meetings, you're basically going to just hear us talking to each other about city business. It's not like a good and welfare where there's public input, but you're going to hear our conversations about city business and how we're going to do things. We may have, as needed, a second meeting in a month. We're going to see how one works out. If we need a second, we'll add it. But for now, it'll be the second Thursday of each month, which is basically the week between the first and second meeting of the month. We're going to be reactivating a number of the committees and the boards. As many of you know, we have a number of them that have sort of been dormant for a while. We're going to be reactivating those. We're going to be working with the staff, trying to figure out what's the best way to have people apply to be on these. Make sure we capture everyone's name, everyone gets accounted accordingly. So just keep an eye open for when we start announcing those. And then finally, we are in the process right now of evaluating some software packages so we can put the city's finances online for the public. So you'll be able to see the city's checks. So they're being looked at right now, and then once one is finally selected, there'll be an implementation period, which will probably be several months, but then you'll have much more transparency on the finances. And with that, we can move on to the
First item is a public hearing for an ordinance to amend the code of ordinances of the city of Long Beach regarding Appendix A-Zoning.
council and members of the public. I believe the city council has in front of it a very important item that's sorely needed in our community. North Park deserves safe, FEMA compliant, and resilient housing. And as counsel to the zoning board, I have seen individuals invest a lot of money in other parts of Long Beach that I have not seen in North Park. And a common theme that I saw with my time on the zoning board was that individuals or entities would make applications to the zoning board to construct a two-family home in the North Park neighborhood. That's what's referred to as a use variance, as opposed to an area variance, is when you want to apply for a use that isn't permitted. Now, a little bit of history here. Currently, two-family homes are prohibited in Residence C and Residence D districts of the city of Long Beach, which are also in North Park. Residence C and D stretches across the entire northern part of Long Beach, but the legislation in front of you today is intended to address a specific area in North Park where I've seen these applications come before the ZBA and they get denied because the standard for a use variance is actually very high, and many times individuals don't realize that until they get to the zoning board and I explain to them what the legal standard is for a use variance. What happens when they receive that denial is I've seen those properties sit vacant. And it's a shame to deprive the community of the benefits of certain types of investment, including investments in real estate, which will result in safe, affordable housing, I should say. And the affordability is a very significant component. I believe the residents of North Park have been very vocal about not just preserving the character of the neighborhood, but also making sure that individuals who live in the neighborhood can stay in the neighborhood. So this specific legislation is designed to provide affordable housing to individuals who may not otherwise qualify for public housing or other forms of government assistance. While there's a lot of verbiage in the statute, I think what it intends to do is very simple. It intends to permit a two-family home as of right if the developer commits to having one of the two units being affordable for a period of 15 years. Now, what does affordability mean under this ordinance? Affordability means that one of the two units in the two-family cannot be rented to individuals making more than the area median income for a family of four, and in addition to that requirement, the rent that can be charged is limited to 80% of fair market value as determined by HUD. The beauty of tying this to area median income as well as to fair market value is those are two objective measures that are determined by the federal government for our region. It provides a way for the law to evolve over time without having to change it due to the extent that they encompass dated numbers. And I'd like to draw the attention of the council to the Long Island Workforce Housing Act, just so you can see how much more comprehensive the affordability scheme is here. The Long Island Workforce Housing Act merely requires that units are rented to individuals at 125% of the area median income. Here, they can only be rented to individuals with 100% of the area median income. And in addition to that, there's a restriction on the rents that they can charge. Allowing this program to proceed may help rentals throughout the city of Long Beach, basically because of the law of supply and demand. By increasing the supply of housing, specifically affordable housing, it may help soften demand in other parts of the city, including North Park as well, but in other parts of the city, which could result, at least according to economic theory, in lower overall rent throughout the city of Long Beach. You may want to ask why 80% of HUD fair market value? As somebody with a little bit of an economics background, I understand that developers must meet their objectives, but so must the residents of North Park. We are trying to achieve affordable housing, and we want things to be built, but we don't want to impose restrictions that are so stringent as to discourage development. So it's a delicate balance. And I arrived at 80% of fair market value because if you calculate the subsidy, let's say, for a 3-bedroom home over the next 15 years,
that is proposed in this ordinance, the developer will be providing a subsidy of about $90,000 per unit over the 15 years. And I say 90,000 because that number is going to go up because the fair market value goes up usually every single year. When you balance that against the projected value added by having a two-family versus a one-family, it kind of helps it to make economic sense for a developer to pursue this program. I'd also like to mention that this program is taking place at an opportune time because that area has been zoned as a federal opportunity zone, which means that developers could roll over corporate money without paying the capital gains tax so long as they commit to a minimum of a 10-year investment. We're asking that they invest in the community for 15. Now, in addition to providing affordable homes and two families, this is intended to address non-conforming lots, specifically along Pine Street. And I'll address that briefly when we go through our slides. But there are a lot of non-conforming lots, and by non-conforming lots, I mean lots that are smaller than the minimum lot size. So what you get when you get a non-conforming lot is individuals who own them come to the zoning board and ask for variances to build something reasonable there. But because the lots are small, we can't account for side yards and rear yards and other area requirements like we would in a typical application because the lot size is small. So you get a house that's jammed on a tiny lot. What this legislation seeks to do is if an individual purchases several non-conforming lots, meaning they don't meet the minimum lot size that are adjoining, it permits them to build attached two-family homes, maximum of 4. The reason why that's a good idea, I think, is because the whole point of zoning is to move away from non-conformance to conformance. Just like if someone receives a building violation, one of the overarching goals of litigating the building violation is achieving compliance. We provide an incentive to them to build attached two families because that lowers the overall cost of construction. And it will provide for greater side yards, rear yards, and in general space for light and air around the construction while maintaining the character of the neighborhood because these non-conforming lots that I'm referring to are on the south side of Pine Street. On the north side of Pine Street, there is a, basically a wall of attached two-family units. Here, we would be providing for space for light and air while also providing the benefit of, hey, if you purchase a few of these in a row, you can build them attached to each other and you're going to save on your construction costs. Enforcement. This is the last item I'd like to touch on. How are we going to enforce this? Well, the statute provides the city with the ability to charge back any expenses incurred in reviewing applications for this item. That includes if we have a third party reviewing the applications, which I believe the city should pursue with a nonprofit like the Long Island Housing Partnership. They would be reviewing the lease agreements. They would be reviewing applications to make sure that the affordable units are being rented to individuals that are within the guidelines and that they're paying the appropriate price. Additionally, in order to obtain this two-family, the developer or individual would have to file the restrictive covenant with the Nassau County Clerk's Office that will last for a period of 15 years from the time the CO is issued. What that means is for 15 years, it's going to be posted and well known by the developer and anybody who acquires the property that the second unit in the building must be rented to somebody who complies with the guidelines in this legislation. Okay, with that being said, I'd like to go over some slides. In the interim, I do want to thank several people for assisting me in preparing this presentation, as well as the slides, Rebecca Steiner from Economic Development, as well as Patty Bourne. In addition, you're going to be hearing from Carrie O'Fallon from Nelson Pope, who has done the environmental review on this, which is very important and must be voted on prior to voting on the ordinance to comply with our legal requirements. In that vein, I mentioned this initiative is not out of character with the neighborhood because there are many two-family homes located in the neighborhood already, and the 1987 comprehensive plan permitted two-family homes as of right until the city council decided in 2000 to not permit the construction of new two-family homes unless there was a previously existing two-family certificate of occupancy on the property. So now, with the first slide here, we see a rough boundary of the North Park Overlay District. It's going to go from the railroad tracks to Long Beach Boulevard, north to Pine Street, and south to the Stop and Shop Parking Center, and almost to Park Avenue, but not including Park Avenue. Next slide, please. This slide provides a Google Maps image of the proposed overlay district, where what is currently there is depicted from a satellite image. Next slide, please. The purposes of the North Park Overlay District are included within the statute as stated legislative purposes, which assist an individual in interpreting the statute. But essentially, we're trying to keep the character of North Park, encourage the people that live there to stay there, and encourage investment dollars to flow in there at the same time. And the result of that is safe, FEMA compliant, and resilient housing for the residents of North Park. Next slide, please. Here we see some of the key terms in the statute defined, including the affordable housing. As I went over previously, dwelling units constructed for families whose annual income is no more than the Nassau, Suffolk, New York metro area median income for a family of 4, and it cannot exceed 80% of the HUD fair market rental value for Nassau, Suffolk County. Once again, I emphasize that this is far more restrictive than what is contained in the Long Island Workforce Housing Act. Next slide, please. Affordable rental. In developments where units are specifically approved for rental, the monthly rental price shall be no greater than 80% of the HUD fair market value, provided all utilities are included in the rental price. Right now, that figure for a 3-bedroom home at 80% of HUD fair market value is a little bit over $2,000. Obviously, that is subject to change as HUD changes its numbers. Next slide, please. We see the fair market values that I was just discussing on the bottom of the screen right there. Once again, the affordable unit would be capped at 80% of that. And this goes over some of the key points of the law, which I already went over with you guys, that 50% of the dwelling units in the two-family, meaning one unit, must be affordable for a period of 15 years, and that the owner is required to submit documentation to prove it. And importantly, that affordable units must be of similar size and quality of construction as the market rate units. Next slide, please. This slide is meant to emphasize the fact that we are not necessarily changing the existing zoning requirements. We are only providing an incentive in accordance with what I've already stated to the council. All other requirements, be they parking, height, or otherwise, still remain in effect. Next slide, please. This map is an interesting map which outlines in yellow any site that may be affected by the passage of this legislation. Next slide, please. I made a very similar presentation to the one that you are hearing today to the Nassau County Planning Commission. I believe the application was very well received. We send all of our zoning matters to the Nassau County Planning Commission pursuant to General Municipal Law Section 239M. They are required to review and opine on it prior to any type of passage, whether it's zoning, legislation, or otherwise. Typically, when they approve of something, they refer it back to the municipality for local action. But I want to emphasize that they did something a little bit different here, which is unusual and I think a very good sign of how well received this legislation is. Next slide, please. The Nassau County Planning Commission stated, the City of Long Beach should be commended for proposing an innovative strategy to promote the long-term sustainable community redevelopment. This affordable housing overlay district encourages much-needed local investment in resilient community-compliant housing while simultaneously providing housing affordability, including and most importantly, affordable rentals. The overlay district advances these vitally important planning goals in a manner that is consistent with enhancing the residential community character of the existing neighborhoods to be included in the overlay district. That's a quote from Neil Lewis, the third vice chair of the Nassau County Planning Commission. Once again, I emphasize it's very unusual for them to speak approvingly about a project in that way, but I think that they felt strongly about this legislative item. That concludes my presentation. Unless there's any questions from the council, I would like to hand it off to Ms. Carrie O'Farrell, who is a partner from Nelson Pope, who did our environmental review. She's incredibly qualified and incredibly well spoken. So unless the council has any questions at this time, I'd like to hand it over to her.
How did this all begin?
As I stated in the beginning, this all began because I saw that applications were being made to the zoning board to do 2 families in North Park. And when they were denied, nothing would become of that property. It would just kind of lay vacant and dormant. In the past, I had worked with Councilmember Moore and discussed this issue with her. We met with various community groups. I think the consensus was that the community wants something like this, that this is something that is necessary for the city, and that's how it came about.
How long have you been working on it?
Working on, that's a difficult question. To give you a straightforward answer, I received a request from 3 members of the council in November of 2019 to begin work on this item, and I began work on this item, and here we are now.
What members?
It was Councilmember Ramo, Councilmember Moore, and Councilmember Dunn. Are there any other questions from the council at this time? Yes, Councilmember Dooley.
I just have one question.
Yes.
Does this application need any revisions? It says, the name of responsible officer in the lead agency, and this would be Moore, and then title of responsible officer, city council president. That's my only question, since it may be issued in the fire or does.
So that has to do with the environmental review. Ms. O'Farrell prepared that, and I think she put in President Moore because she was president at the time for no other reason than that.
Right.
That can be modified very easily and will be modified as it's going to have to be President Bendo who signs that document.
Okay, thank you, Councilor.
This is probably, I'm going to ask, what's probably being thought up by other people in the audience. What's to stop these from, unfortunately, not being used for the purpose they are, becoming Airbnbs or something like that?
That's a good question, but I think it applies to any type of housing or any type of development in the city. It's like, well, it's going to be an Airbnb. Sure, but that kind of threat, it's an enforcement issue, number one, but number two, it applies equally to any type of construction in the city. It could be an Airbnb. I have a lot of faith in our building department. I know they're very good at enforcement, and I know that they are very quick to act on complaints. So to the extent that there are any Airbnbs or other non-compliances with the zoning code, those should be reported to the building department and taken care of accordingly.
And one other, obviously there's financial incentive for developers to do this with the capital gains, but would there be an advantage to requiring owner occupancy in these to, and I'll use an example of Auburn by the Sea down in the Rockaways. What they did there is when you bought there, you were buying 2 units. And the way they defined this becoming affordable is you were required to live in one of the units and you rented the other. And by renting the other, that helped you pay your mortgage to make it affordable to actually own the property. Could this program be used to facilitate home ownership as well with North Park residents?
Well, it could be used to facilitate home ownership because anybody is eligible for the program.
Okay, so it's not just the developer, it's anyone who can.
Any single person is eligible for the program. And if you meet the affordability criteria, that individual can occupy the affordable unit and rent the other one out at market rate. You could also have an existing one-family home, and you could do some work to convert it into a 2-family, so long as one of the 2 units is rented to an individual who complies with the guidelines. That's another way that residents or homeowners in North Park can realize the financial benefits.
So that's something they want to include in messaging to the residents of North Park, that where it could potentially help them with home ownership.
Absolutely. Are there any other questions from the council before I hand this off to Ms. O'Farrell?
Okay.
Good evening, Carrie O'Farrell with the firm of Nelson, Pope & Gorky. As Greg outlined, one of the responsibilities of the City Council is to perform an environmental review of the proposed zoning. So we assisted in preparing the necessary documentation and evaluating the various environmental resources that are required under the State Environmental Quality Review Act. So before you, you have the various pieces of that documentation, which is, includes a Part 1 environmental assessment form, which details some of the basic project information, a Part 2 environmental assessment form, which is a checklist of the different environmental resource areas and evaluates does the proposed action meet certain thresholds that are identified, typically to help the agency determine if there's a need for further environmental review. And Part 3, which is our recommendation of a determination of significance. We included in that an attachment that goes through each one of the resource areas, so you can see how we came to the conclusion. And our recommendation for this board is for you to adopt what's considered a negative declaration, meaning that there is not need for further environmental review. As part of the work that we performed, we looked at how many additional units could be built under this legislation within the Northeast Park area. So if you look at figure 3, which was up on the screen a moment ago, that identified how many existing one-family lots remain within the North Park area, we evaluated how could these lots under the zoning be redeveloped. And our conclusion was there's a maximum of 96 additional units as a maximum worst case, or maximum case, not worst case, that'd be great. But it is acknowledged that not every property owner will opt in to redevelop their lots, but we wanted to evaluate, again, what's the maximum so that you have a threshold for the purpose of the environmental review. And as you notice on that figure, quite a number, over half of the existing units are two-family or three-family units. So the character in that area largely, is a single-family, two-family, three-family dwelling. So we only looked at which lots currently are single-family and therefore would be eligible for the two-family option under the code. With that, if you have any questions specific to the environmental documentation before you, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, I guess I'll start. On page 3 of 10 of Part 2, it says that the proposed action may result in development on land subject to flooding, and it says no, but my understanding is that's a 100-year floodplain, and anyone that lives on the bay side knows that even at a full moon, high tide can be flood over there.
That is correct. So the zoning itself is the action before you. So the zoning itself does not result in development of land. It is a change to your zoning code. If somebody chooses to opt into that zoning district after you have adopted it, then there is a possibility for, as part of the redevelopment, a home could be built within the floodplain and would be subject to the new FEMA requirements and therefore need to be built at a flood compliant housing. But the zoning in and of itself does not result in the development. Somebody has to make an application subject to, once the zoning is established, if you so choose to do that. So that's why we answered it in that way.
Okay.
But I can, if you would like, we can clarify that.
That would be helpful,
especially in
because,
the-
yeah, my interpretation of that was, it's not a flood zone.
So if you look at the attachments in the back, we do go through the impact on flooding and discuss the fact that it's located within the flood zone and how that relates to what I just described in terms of redevelopment should the zoning take place. So that's on page 2 of the attachment at the very end. It's called the full environmental assessment form, Part 2 and Part 3 narrative, which is at the very end of the package.
Okay.
And there may be a few of those, just in case, if you have.
Well, just some
more questions.
clarification would just be good, maybe, going forward. All right, on page 7 of 10 of Part 2, for the critical environmental area, refers back to Part 1, subsection ED3, which is on page 12 of 13, but ED3 is lined out, and it's blank.
That is actually something I circled on my, when I reviewed this prior to coming tonight. That should be changed. 12 should be also in the, and the description, again, if you go to that expanded description at the back, that supports the notation to that instruction that I believe for you.
Okay. In part 3, page 2 of 2, it lists the former council president as more as the responsible officer, but it lists the Long Beach City Council as the lead agency, but we haven't voted to be the lead agency yet, so does that have any impact? I mean, there's
So
no
there's
legal
no other-
lead agency right now.
Right, so part of the action before you will be a number of steps related to the environmental review. You will need to declare yourself the lead agency, but there's no other lead agency that applies in this case. It's solely an action of the city council.
So you can submit it before the council votes that they're the lead agency?
Yes, so this documentation is for your review at this time. I prepared it based on the State Environmental Quality Review Act and the anticipation as this board, because you're the only board that would make this decision, operating as the lead agency under SEQRA, the State Environmental Quality Review Act. So,
A question about that. Item 1 resolution, it's requiring us to vote to declare ourselves lead agency, but it's also requiring us in the same vote to have a negative declaration. So it's twofold.
it is correct, there's 2 steps. Technically, it's all related to the environmental review, and you can make that declaration and make the determination.
Separately.
Well, it's two steps, but it's related to your overall environmental determination for the zoning.
But
So-
first we would be the lead agency.
Correct.
And then we would decide whether or not to accept the negative declaration. So it's two steps
Correct.
and 2 resolutions, if we so choose.
Greg, would be better to answer the question on the resolution itself. I commonly see those 2 actions included on the same resolution, and many of the boards that I support.
Yeah, I concur with Carrie here. Frequently, you see lead agency declaration of lead agency in addition to a determination of significance in the same resolution. I thought it would be appropriate here, especially because there's a separate resolution for SEQRA than there is from the overall ordinance. Oftentimes, SEQRA is included in the ordinance that you're voting on as well.
Can you explain what adopting a negative declaration means?
Sure. So the board's determination under SEQRA is whether or not there is a potential for a significant adverse impact. And if so, then it requires, if this board were to consider or to determine based on the information that we provided before you, that there is the potential for a significant adverse impact. The next step would be to prepare what's called an environmental impact statement. And there's a series of steps that take place under the preparation of an environmental impact statement that the board would then need to undertake. A negative declaration means that you have determined that there is not the potential for a significant adverse impact to the different environmental categories that we've outlined in the package that I provided for you.
Is everyone clear about that?
I know it seems kind of counterintuitive, but our recommendation based on the outline of what we provided for you at this point as part of the environmental review is that the proposed action would not have a significant adverse impact warranting a full environmental impact statement.
Thank you.
I just have a couple of questions, Carrie, thanks for being here tonight. I think President Bendo discussed 3 of 10 and 7 of 10. On page 8 of 10,
You're in the part 2, it sounds like, right?
yeah, it says, impact on noise, odor, and light. My guess is that would you go from a single family to a 2-family or beyond that, that it could have more noise possibilities. How do you determine that this plan has no impact on that?
Sure. Typically, when you evaluate noise, you're looking at, is there a noise that is above and beyond the thresholds that are established in your city code, for instance? So if you're considering a use such as an industrial use as an example, where there may be a lot of heavy trucks or noise that is above and beyond just sort of typical ambient levels. So right now, we have a neighborhood that operates as as I mentioned before, a single family and a two-family neighborhood. It is residential use in general is not something that is typically triggering daily use that is resulting in noises that are particularly obnoxious or something that you would hear from a distance away. So it doesn't typically meet that threshold.
I was just thinking of like single family to two-family or multi-family. There's no detailed reporting. I mean, and we would possibly need to have, or do we have devices that measure noise levels?
So in this case, again, what you would, if you were going to evaluate noise in these neighborhoods, you would you could take ambient noise levels,
Okay.
and you could do that. You have a neighborhood that on the north side has multifamily housing currently there, and you have areas of two-family homes.
Okay.
The ambient noise level, the change in use in a single family to a two-family is not likely to trigger even a noticeable decibel increase that would be considered a significant adverse impact.
Yeah.
Because the character of the area already operates in that kind of fashion. That's not to say that an individual user from occasionally you might have a neighbor that likes to have a party, but the general neighborhood
I just think about cars, people, activity.
It takes quite a bit from quite a number of trips to generate enough noise to trigger from a traffic standpoint alone.
Right.
That was your question.
Exactly.
It takes a lot of trips to get to a point where you would have additional noise because, as I mentioned before, you've got I forget the number of total lot, but we evaluated 96 as the additional number of homes. When you look at the number of trips related to that, it is not a significant volume that would, again, trigger that additional, it's not causing significant delays in the street where people are idling. It's usually something that creates a lot of standing traffic where you have a noise issue related to.
Thanks. And then on page 10 of 10, it just says consistency with the community character. The proposed project is inconsistent with the existing community character. That's checked off as no. I'm not. How does one make that determination?
So we tried to put, again, in that attachment, there's a little bit of justification, but the idea behind what the structure of the zoning, we are keeping the zoning parameters for what's allowed under the existing zoning. We tried to match those with this overlay district. So things like front yard setback, side yard setback, all remain consistent. It's only those existing undersized lots where we have, where we modify it. But even in those undersized lot situations, we're still holding those side yard and front yard setbacks. And that was something we were really careful with when we were looking at the zoning, and make sure that by establishing thresholds for undersized lots, that we wouldn't change the character of the remaining area, because the lots, for the most part, are very zoning compliant in this area, with those couple of exceptions that we talked about. So that's why we set up sort of that three-tiered system of how lots would be handled to allow for grandfathering of an existing condition and still entice that redevelopment of those undersized lots in a reasonable way that's still within the same zoning character as the surrounding area. So, in our evaluation, because we're holding a lot of those zoning requirements, the two-family and three-family already exist in the neighborhood, and readily you cannot tell walking up and down the streets in many cases which home is a one-family or a two-family. And the structure of the zoning is to remain in that way, with the exception of those new attached units for the undersized lots in that area, which are consistent with what's across the street.
And you may have answered it already. Does it change the surface area with the level of construction where groundwater, rain, the runoff is going to be, you'll have more space built and
a lot turnover and something becomes completely covered by a building. So there's a maximum building footprint that's in there.
50%, right?
Correct, yes. And, as these lots redevelop, the idea is you're taking a lot in there's very few vacant lots in this area. It's mostly existing built lots. So they were built at a time where drainage wasn't considered. But now, when you rebuild it, you're going to be in a situation where you have to be FEMA compliant. You have to think about drainage. You have to think about parking. So the renewed or the redeveloped lot should result in an improvement of the overall area and character.
I just got a couple more then. In the narrative on page 4, you talk about the impact of transportation. This is sort of related to it, but it's not addressed here. So, which is realistically all 96 units probably would not be redeveloped, right? But let's say 50, just as a hypothetical. Zoning requires 1 off-street parking per unit. But we know in reality, households typically have more than 1 car. Is part of this valuation, for example, if we're adding 60 or 70 cars into an area where parking is already very difficult, is that part of the evaluation? Those additional cars and then already.
So your question is more related to parking, it sounds like.
Well, right. I mean, I didn't see it addressed in the transportation one, so I was just figuring that would be the only place I could think of it.
So, kind of similar to what we were just talking about on the parking front, the zoning requires that there be a 1 spot provided on site for
Right.
each.
1 per unit.
Yeah, so, and again, in the condition of many of these homes, not every one of these homes has driveways currently. So you do have the condition where the modification of an existing dwelling, which may or may not have a parking spot, will have at least 1 provided.
I guess what I was just asking is part of the evaluation the impact on street parking as well, if that's not considered part of the evaluation?
We evaluated it in terms of the idea of providing on-street parking. That's a requirement in the zoning. So in many cases, that's an improvement over an existing condition because we're providing it on the property.
So I want to make one comment about the parking. It's the way the ordinance is worded, it actually encourages open space underneath the house, which we anticipate is going to happen because A, you're going to lift it, but there's incentive to not enclose it in the ordinance and to leave it open. And the reason why we did that is to ensure that the space underneath that house is used for parking and not converted to anything else. And frequently under the footprint of the house, especially when you have tandem parking, you have more space than the 2 that are required by the code. So that's one of the objectives here too. We're definitely sensitive about parking in the neighborhood.
And just to expand on that a little bit, because of the setback of the house, you have 15 feet until you get to the frontage of the house, and then you would be parking underneath it. So just to, as a typical parking space, you could put 2 cars underneath the house and then 2 cars behind it because you've got that 15 feet in setback. And, that's sort of a minimum. So there's an opportunity to put more than 1 per unit on the redevelopment of the property, if that makes sense.
All right, and this question may be more for all water experts sitting next to me. Again, in the narrative on page 2, you talk about you estimate about 28,000 gallons per day of water use. And it says that, the aquifer and our system is, currently able to accommodate that. This is obviously specific to this one project, but like, for example, with the proposed super block project, which would be another 438 units, cumulatively, I guess this would be more of a city question. Do we look at the cumulative impact on the aquifer, the pipes, will this impact saltwater intrusion, things like that?
I think with the cumulative effect of wall development, we're still very well under our caps, and our levels in our wells would be our static water levels when we shut wells down is still very consistent. As a matter of fact, when we were rehabbing well 16, we had to put a 4-foot extension on the well after we pulled the pump because the water was flowing out of the well. So it's almost like an artesian well. So we have still a pretty good head on the well. but we're significantly below our published caps.
Okay, thank you. And with that, I guess,
I think it's more of a question for council regarding, it says, in the zoning part, that we can't hear now at all. Can you hear me now? Yes. Mr. Kalinsky, it says something about the city becoming a nonprofit to take over the,
Yes, there's a portion of the statute which permits the city to either charge back its expenses and review of applications, or if we engage a nonprofit or a third party to do that review, we can charge back those expenses as well. So that any expenses incurred as a result of reviewing applications, the city doesn't have to bear.
Along those lines, do you have any surveys, letters of support from citizens groups or residents or testimonials or anything from real estate organizations supporting this plan?
I've spoken with real estate organizations, I've spoken with developers in town. Do I have anything in writing for you today? I do not, but they did voice their support. I've also met with community groups in conjunction with former President Moore, who graciously introduced me to them, and I think the project has been well received. And I'm hoping that the public comment tonight also receives this order as well.
I just have, good.
In the city's outreach efforts during the preparation of the comprehensive plan, one of the key things that was heard from this neighborhood was the need for affordable housing. So it is something that is captured in the draft comprehensive plan and is supportive of this legislation.
But this plan refers to the 2007 comprehensive plan as the 2018 comprehensive plan remains in draft form, correct?
Correct.
okay, everybody's been patient. Comments from the public? We see Mr. Pinto got there first.
Even though I raised my hand a few times, if there's someone from North Park, concerned citizens, or from that civic that wants to speak first, I will let them go first. I did have my hand up, but they can go first. Sorry. Thank you. Robbie.
good evening. Jackie Owen, Long Beach. I would like to thank Sam for affording me the opportunity. I would personally like to give the viewpoint on the North Park area under the auspices of the concerned citizens of North Park. I would like to say the quote for today would be, "Is Long Beach for sale?" It has came to our attention that real estate here in Long Beach is booming. After 20 years and 4 gentrifications in the North Park area, it came up for this discussion on the zoning housing overlay, changing zones from one-family dwellings to 2-family dwellings. Affordable North Park Affordable Housing Overlay District. History in Long Beach, North Park area, have experienced 4 gentrifications. We, the North Park, feels very strong that this is an opportunity for the residents in this area
to gain from wrong for so many years to become right. Overlook. It will clean up the area, remove zombie houses, properties have been neglected, and it will do a great upgrade to our neighborhood. Allow local people to stay in the community at an affordable price. It is long due for loss of demand. Positive improvement of the community, entering into the residential community. This is a historical movement. The year of 2000, you were pushing minorities out of the North Park area by rezoning for one family. As the president of the Concerned Citizens of North Park, do the right thing by the people, restore and approve two-family zoning. One unit would be for market value, at market value. The other unit would be affordable. You're looking at a 15-year span, but we deem it necessary to be at a 30-year span. Please, don't vote on this tonight. Please allow the people to understand what is happening here, and we need to have more meetings. Thank you.
Good evening, Sam Pinto, Long Beach. I have a handful of questions, so if this is a time thing, I'd like to get a thought, if possible, while they're answered. Going to the slides for the showing, the Google map, how many of those residents were the ones that were under yellow block?
How many
parcels were yellow block?
I did count them out. 96 are the possible additional units under the plan if everybody took advantage of it and every vacant parcel decided to participate in the program.
So you're saying you have 96 vacant parcels?
No, I'm saying there are single-family homes that are outlined in the yellow, and there's the ones that are outlined in the blue, which are vacant land.
Okay, so my question is, the areas that are not blocked out in the yellow, what do they represent?
I believe existing two-family homes.
So, 4th Street. So we'd be turning the entire area into a 2 or 3 family area?
Well, 3 families are totally non-conforming with our code. To the extent they exist, we permit them to exist until the structure is no longer there. However, we will permit the construction of, 2-family homes, not 3-family.
Okay, I like the old 2000 year 2000 modification of the zoning where living in the middle of town, we used to have all these houses. There was 1 families on 60 by 100, knocked down into 2 families, and then it became a developer's dream. They were developing everywhere. And I'd love to see this turn into something that's not becoming a developer's dream. It becomes a resident's dream to home ownership, similar to what President Bendo brought up. And if possible, you can bring that up where it'll be open. These 56 parcels are available to residents who are going to be either owner occupying 1 or 2 of the parcels within it. So they can be low income or they can open it up. The other part, and they rent out well, not lower income, but the affordable income one. That way it doesn't get taken over by developers because they're going to jump on this.
Everybody is eligible for this program, and we're hoping that the affordability component is going to keep folks in the neighborhood.
What I'm recommending is that you make it eligible to people. So if a person who happens to be a developer wants to develop a parcel, they can do that individually and don't open it to developers. Make this special overlay for people, so they can live here and not make money off the deal, or developers will make money, they can afford home ownership and have a nice place to stay. So I'm making a recommendation for that. Also, how many of those areas in that zone right now are already affordable housing that are being rented out?
I believe on Pine Street, to the north of Pine Street, is rent-controlled housing, that entire block. I'm not sure how many others are subject to various forms of federal assistance.
Well, I would also make the recommendation while you're doing a review of this, look at all these yellow parcels and see how many of them are already affordable housing. Because you may be helping or you may be making a hindrance by doing that type of diligence. Another recommendation is if, how many of those areas in that zone right now are already affordable housing? I believe on Pine Street, to the north of Pine Street, is rent-controlled housing, that entire block. I'm not sure how many others are subject to various forms of federal assistance. Well, I would also make the recommendation while you're doing a review of this, look at all these yellow parcels and see how many of them are already affordable housing. Because you may be helping or you may be making a hindrance by doing that type of diligence. Another recommendation is if, if this is a good plan, right, if this makes sense, I believe in more of an inclusive Long Beach as a whole. I understand North Park has a beautiful character of its own, but if it's something good, bring it to the entire community. Bring it to the middle of town, the east end of town, because there's a ton of empty lots in the west end. There's a ton of people in the west end who are struggling that may want two-family houses, or they may not want two-family homes, and there's people who already live in North Park who may be struggling, who don't want two-family homes next to them. So make it part, just to single this area out. I understand why you may want to do it, but I'm concerned that developers may take advantage of it. And in part, if it's a good idea, do it as more of a global event.
So I actually happen to agree with you, Mr. Pinto. I think it is a good thing overall, but I think this would be a great opportunity for kind of a pilot program that if this works well in one neighborhood, perhaps we should consider applying it to other neighborhoods.
Wow.
Okay, that's just another concern. And one more comment with this. It's only 56 parcels. I think a good step, instead of running before we start walking on this whole thing, is offer a fast pass for zoning for residents who live in the area who want to try to take that step into home ownership, or non-developers taking that step into home ownership. Let's do it with a fast pass to zoning. I'll wrap up in a second, but in theory, you don't have to change the whole thing. You don't have to change the character of the community. Keep a smaller step and move forward. And I just have one question on the SEQRA, which I wanted to get to. One question. Last question. Everything here is a negative, negative, negative. But I'm just looking at page, this is my last question. It was, how it has a negative impact on all services, whether it's school, police, fire. How would be turning all these residences from one family to two have a zero impact on school, fire, police, etc.?
It's not that it has a zero impact. I think that it's not likely to have a significant impact. It doesn't say that it has a zero impact.
It says none.
It says it's not likely to have a significant impact. That's, Harry, if you want to take that away, that's the standard of review.
That's correct. The threshold is related to the significance of the impact, not that there is none. But again, as we described, it's looking at, one, this area in general, which is a mix of already single-family and two-family homes, the additional units that could be anticipated, which we do not expect to happen all at one time. It would be as people decide to opt in, and looking at the city as a whole, how does 96 maximum units relate to the overall population and the services that are provided citywide? So our conclusion, based on those various factors, were that this does not raise to a level of adverse significance.
Thank you for the extra time.
Celeste. Now find out if we get one grace period meeting or they'll send us right out.
Roy Leslie, Dave, initially it says that this is the intention of the proposal is to permit and encourage redevelopment of vacant and or deteriorated residential properties within the North Park neighborhood. How much vacant and deteriorated properties are there, number-wise?
Well, the vacant properties are highlighted in blue in the slideshow. I'm going to count them out right now.
And how many deteriorated?
That's, it's hard to say what's deteriorated or not.
You guys have a zombie home policy here, you should know that.
Well, zombie home is different from deteriorated.
Well, wouldn't you, when you look at zombie homes, wouldn't you notice they're deteriorated?
Zombie homes aren't necessarily deteriorated. Zombie homes are homes that are in foreclosure, where the bank doesn't own the
No,
property.
I know what a zombie home is. So you don't know how many deteriorated homes there are here.
Well, how would you say what home is deteriorated and what home is not
Well,
deteriorated?
that's the
Subjective
intention here.
qualification.
This is the intention. Redevelopment of vacant and or deteriorated residential properties. And I'm sure, you know, if this is being proposed, there's a reason for it. All right, never mind, you don't know. That's the answer. Okay, so I have to agree with Stan. What I see this happening is the developers coming in, first of all, it will increase the value of the properties, no question about it, because now developers can come in and put two-family here. Now, John, what you suggested, what they're doing in Auburn, is absolutely the right way to do it. When you have a resident, and then the resident can come in, and, you know, maybe the city could help with financing for residents, and then you make it into a two-family, and that helps the residents stay here. But this is not what's going to happen here. What's going to happen here is the developers are going to come in, they're going to see an opportunity, and like Jackie says, Long Beach is going to be for sale. This isn't, you know, this isn't about keeping the people who own the houses here. This is about making some people rich. And you already have the capital gain advantage here. You know, there's an additional incentive for the developers to come in. And let me tell you, my occupation is a bankruptcy attorney. And I see so many people who are tenants, and I try to help them out. And there's nothing more pathetic than seeing somebody who has lived in a house for years and years, and whether it's affordable or not, and they get sick or something happens, and the next thing they know, they're getting kicked out. And that's exactly what happens when developers come in. They don't care if you get sick. They don't care what the problem is. You fall behind in your rent. This isn't your neighbor. This is some developer from out of town who looked at an opportunity, who saw an opportunity here, and said, great, Long Beach is a good place. Now, if I can get, and you saw the numbers, $2,000 on the affordable one for, let's say, a three-bedroom, and then on the non-affordable one, $3,000, $4,000, $6,000 on a house that might have cost them about $400,000 to put up. That's damn good money.
Can you wrap up, please?
I'm wrapped.
Good evening, Dennis Kelly, 435 West Fulton Street, Long Beach, New York. Congratulations to the members. I actually wrote out what I was going to say because I don't know if I can talk for 3 minutes. I get all my points in. I support the proposed amendment to the City of Long Beach Zoning Code of Ordinances to create the North Park Overlay District that will allow for the construction of a new FEMA-compliant two-family homes, provided that one of the two units of the home meet the definition of affordable housing stated in the amendment. The new North Park Overlay District also lies in the Opportunity Zone designated by Governor Cuomo pursuant to the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017. Opportunity zones are an economic development tool designed to spur economic development and creation of distressed communities. The North Park Overlay District is also consistent with the goals of the draft comprehensive plan of 2018 in creating new FEMA-compliant affordable housing in North Park. The North Park neighborhood did not experience the revitalizing investment of funds from flood insurance and grant programs after Sandy like other neighborhoods in the city. The creation of the North Park Overlay District by this amendment will attract the private investment needed for the revitalization of the housing stock in the neighborhood, and at the same time create the real affordable housing so many people in the city support. I can't emphasize that enough. What Mr. Kalninsky has done with the help of Nelson and Polk in formulating the HUD requirements really creates affordable housing here. And for a prolonged committed point of time, too, 15 years. And in the event that you don't comply, you lose your certificate of occupancy. This is an ordinance that will inject a new vibrancy in North Park and create affordable housing needed for this city to remain thriving and robust. You know, and as to my colleague, Mr. Lester's comments, one bad house can be extremely difficult for a block or an entire neighborhood. Several houses deteriorating, and we can't tell necessarily what's deteriorating, might just be empty, or it could be full and falling apart. What's deterioration necessarily mean? Doesn't matter. If someone wants to come in with private funds to make an investment in the community and be held to the constraints of the ordinance, then I think it's a good thing for the community. But just to make a note on how things have changed, On January 4th, 2000, at my first meeting as a newly elected council member, we passed an ordinance that significantly limited the building of two-family homes in zoning districts that allowed for two-family homes. So it's not as if there aren't any two-family homes over there. The fact of the matter is, if you tear down your home and you actually abandon the home, then all of a sudden you've lost the right to rebuild a two-family home. And that's in District C and D, which are addressed in the amendment. At the time, we saw new two-family homes as burdening services and creating congestion. Now we need the two-family homes, or we will exile the young, deplete our workforce, and lose the diversity that defines us as a city. The passing of this amendment would be a good beginning for a united progressive council. I respectfully request you pass this ordinance. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. It's the late one.
Can't hear you.
Okay. First of all, I did send everyone.
Can't hear you.
I sent everyone emails regarding some suggestions. Something of this nature, I think we really need to take a slight step back, have more resident input and community participation. That would be, the information basically became available between Sunday and Monday. So for me to actually read the environmental assessment form, okay, that's not giving anyone enough opportunity to actually review the documentation. So there needs to be open dialogue, more community input, and there is still some protection, federal protection within North Park. We are still slightly considered an environmental justice area under Presidential Executive Order 12890, environmental justice. Also, under New York State DEC, there are environmental justice criteria.
Can you please email us those documents?
Of course.
Thank you.
And having said that, it's a 50-50 opportunity. It can actually go either way, depending upon how it's laid out. There actually needs to be a North Park Community Advisory Board. This way, the information will be disseminated to all individuals throughout the city of Long Beach. Something of this nature, usually, well, let me take a step back. There are so many foreclosures in Long Beach that have already been purchased. So this is going to give many an opportunity for games. From the 5 parcels, there's only approximately 5 parcels of vacant land. Okay, that will be beneficial to some individuals. However, the total one-family homes, where it's a very slippery slope, to be quite honest. There could be a great deal of benefit, but it has to be targeted very select. Otherwise, North Park will continue to gentrify, and it will become the home of division of families once again. So I'm hoping across the board, the affordability component will be available to all, to whoever will walk through the door and earn the benefit. So please, take some time, get everyone involved, and lay this out properly. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Good evening. AJ Scordio, Long Beach, New York. The Long Island Builders Institute, the largest residential home building trade association in New York State, wishes to express its strong support for this resolution, which creates the North Park Affordable Housing Overlay District and urges its approval by the Long Beach City Council. The need for affordable housing within our region is one of the most important issues facing our communities. To find a solution to this issue, it is essential for our municipal governments and our local developers to work together. With the municipality providing the necessary zoning and the development community providing financing necessary for the construction of such housing. The North Park Affordable Housing Overlay District, created by this resolution, is a perfect example of the ability of our local municipalities to create zoning which meets two essential goals. First, by providing the zoning change itself, the City of Long Beach is eliminating the need for developer-requested zoning changes for each parcel in the community. Second, by allowing for an overlay district over an extended community, the city eliminates the need for parcel-by-parcel zoning. It will allow a developer or developers to know from the beginning the size, location, and price of the units before spending any funds on the development project itself. By providing a combination of both affordable and market rate housing, it allows the developer to know at the beginning what is dwelling units, what is permissible, thus allow them to allocate their costs within the project itself. The two-family dwelling units, one affordable and one market rate, allow for a mix of incomes within the community without causing all of the affordable units to be in one place and for all the market rate units to be in another place. This interdependency of the two types of housing allows for a more diverse community without the stigma of dividing the community by price. For any community to prosper, it needs to provide a mix of housing options for all incomes. The North Park Affordable Housing Overlay District provides such a mix, provides the necessary zoning changes to allow it to happen, and allows for a developer or developers to know what the rules are before their project begins. For all of these reasons, and because we firmly believe that this resolution will benefit the entire Long Beach community, the Long Island Builders Institute urges its approval. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Mr. Kathy Williams. I'm a resident of Long Beach. I have been here for over 50 years, and I've watched many programs come and go. One was urban renewal. It ended up being urban removal for people in the Nassau Park area and some of the on this side. And one can't help but be leery about the program that you're presenting here tonight. It's very considerate of the builder to include affordable housing, but affordable on whose income? The government has ways of calculating things that will still end up causing people to lose their homes. I find it very, very upsetting to know that somebody, or there will be more than just somebody, a lot of people will be displaced forever. I've seen it happen over and over again. It's a good program. I'm sure you mean well, but I urge you tonight to not to consider this hastily, to take your time and look into this and include more people from other parts of town to look into what you are doing. Ownership should be encouraged. But if you have any program, and I'm a little concerned that nothing is mentioned here about senior units. what's being talked about here tonight. It's a good program, but you just can't jump into it. Okay? It could end up being like you're jumping into a swimming pool with a cinder block around your neck.
Mr. McNabb.
I'm not deferring to Mr. Gus. Good evening, everybody. Congratulations to the new council members. John Henley, 613 West Walnut Street. Congratulations to Corporation Council. Clearly a lot of work went into this, and I think the intent behind it is really good. I think what we're hearing tonight is that you got to daylight it a little bit, though. This is a process that, as of yet, has been a quiet one. And I think daylight and more public meetings that weigh in on this thing will end up resulting in an overall better plan. So to that end, I have just a couple of sort of specific questions. I assume some of which, or most of which, you won't be able to answer tonight. But of the properties that are highlighted in yellow, so the questions that would turn, the properties that would turn from single family to double family or multifamily, do you know what percentage of those units are currently owner occupied?
No.
And do we know what the current rents of this study area actually are?
There was no way for us to make a cost-effective study of this area and kind of, figure out what the rents are in this specific zone. So we used the figures from HUD for the Nassau Suffolk area.
Okay. That's, I guess the point what I'm getting at here is you might end up having the opposite effect. You might actually reduce home ownership and the stability that comes with home ownership by implementing something like this as an unintended consequence. And at the same time, for all we know, or we don't know, just because it's 80% of an AMI doesn't mean that that's reflective of the rents in this specific community. So 80% of AMI, I do not know.
80% of HUD fair market value, restricted to be rented to individuals at 100% of AMI.
So it's still that AMI is Nassau and Suffolk is, which I would say, taken as a whole, is not representative of this specific study area of this community. So the point being that you may end up reducing the affordability of this area, again, as an unintended consequence. So I think drilling down on this to really, see what the impacts in this community are, and I think public process is part of that. So the last other thing is, are there consolidated ownerships or a significant land or property owner in a specific area that is included in the study area? Or have specific developers been engaged to sort of flush this through from either a financial stability standpoint or from a potential profit interest?
Like I said, I started this endeavor, it first came to me about 2 years ago, when I saw individuals come to the zoning board, apply for two families, get denied, and then the property either sat the way it was and vacant, or just nothing happened. There was no result, there was no development. And sitting in the zoning board, I saw a lot of money flooding into a lot of neighborhoods of Long Beach, but not North Park. And I thought this would be a good way to encourage investment in North Park. So there's safety and compliant housing while maintaining a level of affordability in the neighborhood, which is, there's no restrictions right now. And if you're a developer, and you own property, there's nothing stopping you from putting like a FEMA trailer on it saying, all right, here you go, let's rent it. This way, we get new two-family FEMA compliant homes. And for a 3-bedroom, to pay $2,000 with utilities included in a brand new FEMA compliant home, I think that's a good deal. And I think it will help people in the neighborhood stay there.
No, again, I'm not questioning the intent of this, and I do think you built a really good foundation here. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Mr. Gusler.
Good evening, Jay Gus from Long Beach. I'm like John. I do question the intent of this, but I'm trying to break my comments up into two parts. First, dealing with the SEQRA declaration. I'm really not seeing how the negative declaration can be sustained on the record before the council. It seems like a cut and paste job to me. I definitely think that of not voting on things the same night as the hearing is wise, and especially so under these circumstances. I think you guys need to do some more study, maybe with a consultant of your own choosing. The other thing is that, there's no way, again, dealing with the SEQRA conclusions, there's no way to allow multiple dwellings isn't going to increase population and housing density. In fact, that's a stated reality of the proposal. Long Beach is already among the most housing and population dense places on Long Island. In fact, it's not even fair to compare it to the rest of Long Island. It's more fair to compare it to Queens. So I'm really not understanding how there could be almost a summary conclusion that there's not going to be any impact on traffic. To assume that the occupants of these properties aren't going to have cars is overly optimistic. There's certainly going to be an increase in demand for water, sewer, trash services versus development as of right in the current zoning. I'd like to know if Nelson Pope has expressed as a percentage increase what they anticipate to happen with these properties if developed under this proposal as opposed to the current as of right zoning, and whether or not those impacts will be material or insignificant. And the other thing with regard to the intent, everybody acts like we're going to do this and the developer's going to come flocking. The developer's already here. They've already been buying up these parcels. The suggestion that this was brought about as a result of some perception of some sort of need or neglect of a certain part of town or the other, that's nonsense. I've been hearing rumors about people investing, connected people investing in this area of town for the last few years. I just wasn't sure what their ultimate end game was, but now it's come clear to me. We're talking about non-conforming lots that the owners bought at bargain basement prices with the lot sizes, making it impractical or unprofitable for them to develop. But now this measure is going to come along and be adopted, and these non-conforming parcels can not only be developed, but they can be overdeveloped by shoehorning multiple family structures onto them. And this, while this may add some housing stock to the city, it will definitely boost the profit margins and the return on investment of those real estate speculators that have had the foresight to buy into this area of town.
Okay, can you wrap up, please?
Sure. Given that this proposal was hatched by the previous administration, you'll have to pardon my skepticism about the promised affordable housing benefits that are being dangled before us in order to urge passage of the measure.
Any more input?
Hello, my name is Darren from Long Beach. I wanted to start by handing out to you some numbers that I ran, which of course you can review now for this meeting. If you want to spend time doing that, that's what I'll do it. Will do. I did have a presentation or a speech I wanted to do, but I'm not going to do that now. After listening to everything everybody has said, I think I just kind of want to address what I've been hearing. I am somebody who did buy a parcel over there, and which you'll see there, I mentioned 24 East Pine Street. And I'm showing you there what I actually have approved and was planning to build as a single-family home, which would have been a 5-bedroom home, market rate, not affordable, and the returns that I would be potentially getting as renting that property. And then you'll see what would happen with what you propose here today. Instead of continuing to go into that, I'd like to just address tonight a couple of things I heard tonight. For example, the Avon by the Sea, with an owner buying in a 2-family. The Avon by the Sea was a multi-billion-dollar investment by a developer, where they then rented and also sold to rent to get some of the money back, similar to what you were seeing for the development of Superfly. Condos and rentals, they did a lot of that there, and they had rental buildings and lots of subsidies and lots of tax rebates, which this does not allow. This is a private, this would be private money to developers to invest, or somebody who wants to build for themselves or their own single-family home and have a rental component. So that would be good for anybody who has the right to do this. There was a comment about affordable housing there already existing in these slots. If that is true, it may be true that they are already affordable rent, but they're not FEMA compliant, and some of them are, dilapidated and just being rented by some owner that doesn't care and is collecting his rent and not fixing the house. As far as people coming because of the opportunity zone now, I've seen it. I've driven down the block. I'm there all the time working on 24 Spine, and they're raising dilapidated homes. I've talked to them to try and actually buy them, to try and put a nice new FEMA compliant home. They said, no, I'm going to make my quick $100 grand. Flat out of his mouth, not from Long Beach, not local like me. They raise it, coat paint, new appliances, sell the little tiny home as is, and walk away for $300,000 when they bought it from New York Rights. That I don't think is conducive to making the environment better. There's talk about developers already coming in, buying land, doing this. It's been over a decade. It's been prior to Sandy that some of these homes have been for sale, dilapidated, or vacant land, some of which that I have actually purchased to try and help develop this area. So nobody's coming, nobody's coming. So much to say, but I do agree that there is a need for home ownership. I think someone coming in and building these homes, it would then later be able to be sold 10, 15 years down the line to someone who wants to live here, can afford to live here, and the affordable housing component will help them.
Okay, time is up, so.
Thank you.
Mr. Healy?
President Healy, Long Beach. I had questions of Nelson Pope. What was the criteria that was used to select the firm?
Nelson Pope would fall under professional services under procurement, so I had first heard of Nelson Pope when we required environmental review on another project. Another attorney who does zoning and land use, I hold in very high regard, recommended that we use Nelson Pope. The zoning board and myself have used Nelson Pope for a number of years, and I'm very happy with the services they provided, so that's why I asked them to do the work here.
And I don't think there's any question. The presentation tonight was excellent. Are they considered to be an independent view? What's their role in the project?
Their role is simply to perform the environmental review to make sure that any action taken, as far as approval goes, is compliant with the State Environmental Quality Review Act. They have no agenda. I believe Ms. O'Farrell took a look at a lot of objective factors and what we were trying to do and did her best to cater a specific response to this project.
And actually, the perception of a conflict is something that I think needs to be raised, given that tonight you had Long Island Business Builders Institute.
Yes.
Presented tonight. Are any of the directors, officers of Nelson Pope on the board of the Long Island Business Institute or their PAC?
Not that I'm aware, but I can tell you how I got in touch with Long Island Business Institute. I was, in addition to meeting with members of the community, I was curious to see if the proposed statute would be feasible for developers, and I thought it would be good to contact them. I spoke with their executive director, Mitch Powley. He really liked the idea, and he said he would like to express his support if and when there is a public hearing.
No, that's great. And I think it's important to make sure that we do have that level of independence, because I took a look, just Googling around. The Long Island Builders Institute, sorry, I got it wrong. Charles Voorhees, who's part of Nelson Pope, I believe. If that's correct. V-O-O-R-H-I-S. Is Charles, is he a partner or member?
Yes, Charles Voorhees is part of, he is a partner of the firm, Nelson Pope and Voorhees, as the name indicates. He does serve as a member on that board. I don't see how that's a conflict of interest in any way. meeting different developers in the community. We serve developers and municipalities throughout Long Island. I've never heard that as a conflict of interest in any case that I've looked on.
In other words, her firm doesn't stand to benefit if this is passed or not passed.
No, but it's all about perception. I think that the council has seen that.
Can I just add? I was unaware that you even contacted the Long Island Builders Association. I don't know that Charles Voorhees would have known.
I believe he would. I met with the executive director of that organization simply because I was trying to see if this is something that would be not just providing affordable housing, but also feasible for developers to pursue.
Well intended, and again, it's about perception. So the reason why I raised it, I don't know the firm. It's not my line of work. I just was doing it around for 2 seconds, made the quick connection. So again, it's just perception. So if anybody else in the community started Googling around, there's obviously some concern. They say the firm that we hired to be independent, are they truly independent? Is there something else here? I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I think everybody knows that. But again, just looking at that from a conflict perspective, so thanks for answering that. That was helpful. All right. Thank you.
Congratulations, all of you. My name is Robert Donovan, and I live in the canals. And I've lived here 20 years, and I feel for this woman in the front row here, when she said it's more like urban removal. And that's what I hear. And I'm just thinking maybe there's some funding through New York State that could take the first 5 lots and develop them and open up the application process to see who can afford this. I'm thinking maybe there's funding from New York State, so you don't have to offer it to a lot of developers, because I live in the canals, I've seen these houses go up, they're huge, they're affecting our assessments, our taxes, okay? Because all of a sudden, a house in the West End is selling for $900,000. Okay, and I don't want people like that being left out in the cold. I don't know where these people are going to go when you demo all their houses, okay? And it's serious, it really is. So have a heart, like you have a great council now. Call up New York State. I'm telling you, there's money out there. Believe me, there's money.
Happy belated birthday.
Thank you. Good evening, Marcus Tinker here in Long Beach. In regards to this movement with the North Park, we have met with Greg on countless occasions, the previous council. Council President Bendo's been involved, and Councilman Mendel might have been at a meeting. This is not a bad thing. I've lived here since '87, and I know there's a lot of talk about changing back to 2-family homes. The majority of homes in North Park are 2-family. It's not like we're talking about 200 homes being changed from 1-family home to 2-family. The majority of all the homes on the block are 2-family. So it's not going to add that many more cars. It's not a bad thing. As long as it's adding affordable housing, which is something we've been asking for, it's not a bad idea. It's not a bad thing. You know, we do need units available for seniors. I mean, a lot of them have owned homes before, have sold homes because it's hard to maintain it. We don't need them being displaced. 15 years might not be long enough for affordability factor. 30 years would be better, because it gives some families that are starting to have kids now a chance to have their kids stay here a little longer. 15 years is not going to be long enough. So just consider that, and let's not rush this. Take your time. That's all.
Marcus, I have a question for you. Ms. Williams brought up the point, what is affordable? Do we have any sort of data from the residents that have participate to find out what really is affordable?
A lot of residents do make 20, 30, 40,000 a year. They're not going to, a lot of them are not making 70, 80, $100,000 a year in North Park. So we need something along the lines of what they're making to keep them here.
So less than 80% of fair market value, right? So it would be not $1,000 for efficiency, it would be more like 700 or 600, right?
That's realistic for a lot of things.
That's affordable, that's not, but
Yeah, giving somebody $2,200 a month rent is not affordable.
Well, the $2,000 a month figure is for a 3-bed apartment, and that also includes utilities.
an efficiency of 80%, Mike says, would be $992. So for somebody with a take-home income of $1,500 net a month, that would be well over 50% of their take-home pay, correct?
I mean,
That's not important.
I would need to look at the numbers, but once again, I based affordability on fair market value as determined by HUD.
Thank you, Mark.
Well, I'll email Greg later tonight so we can figure out some figures.
Outstanding. Thank you, Mr. Tinker.
Thanks. I want to clarify one thing, Mr. Tinker, thank you for your comments and everybody's comments, it's interesting. Just to clarify, I was not involved in any of these meetings. This first, the public is also being presented with this. I find it interesting. I find the concept very interesting, but just for clarification purposes, I was not involved in any meetings. I appreciate all the work that clearly went into this. I just was not part of it. So just so we're clear.
Any more comments? Okay, we'll leave the hearing open and we'll move on.
We're leaving it here. On to the regular calendar. Item 1 is a resolution declaring the City Council of the City of Long Beach lead agency for the adoption of an amendment to the Code of Ordinances of the City of Long Beach regarding Appendix A-Zoning, determining action classified as type 1 pursuant to SEQRA and adopting a negative declaration.
I motion to table this then.
I second motion to table.
Motion to table item number 1. Councilmember Burr.
Yes.
Councilmember Mandel.
Yes.
Councilmember Preston.
Yes.
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 Item to table. Item 2 is an ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinances of the City of Long Beach regarding Appendix A-Zoning.
I move to table this item.
I second.
Lloyd, Councilmember Burr.
Yes.
Councilmember Mandel.
Yes.
Councilmember Preston.
Yes.
Vice President Smith.
Yes.
President Bender.
Yes.
Item 3 is a resolution authorizing settlement of an action brought by Jennifer Hall against the City of Long Beach.
Okay, this item is from the City Council. It's a pending negligence case. The City Council has been fully briefed by a member of my staff in the form of a written memo about the facts, circumstances, details, potential liabilities. I believe it was a very comprehensive memo. I know Council Member Bendo had initiated this new policy in conjunction with the City Council to hold things over until the next meeting, which I appreciate and respect for an item like the overlay zone. But just this morning, an attorney in my office went to court and he started picking a jury. So unless this is able to be settled today. Oh, perfect. Very good. Yes, no, just to put things in context, you know. Okay, very good.
Okay, any comments or questions from the council? Any comments from the audience? Okay, on to the next.
Item 4 is a resolution authorizing budget amendment for the general fund budget for the 2019-20 fiscal year.
This item is to take funds that were donated to the city by the Honorable Harvey Wiesenberg to replace the post clock in front of Long Island Railroad Station, which was part of the police memorial. So this just takes the funds and puts it into the city account so that we can purchase the clock.
Any questions from the council?
Thank you, Mark.
Yes, any questions from the audience? Okay, next item.
Item 5 is a resolution to appoint a temporary audit committee and audit committee charter drafting team.
I was asked to draft this resolution by a member of the council. The intent here is to establish a temporary committee to oversee the audit process for now and provide advisory opinions, but while that is going on, that committee will also work in conjunction with my office to draft a formal charter that will govern their powers and responsibilities.
Questions from the council? Questions from the audience? Verona?
Eddie Byrne. Will the meetings for this audit committee be public?
The audit committee, as it stands right now, is advisory in nature and is typically advisory in nature. Therefore, because it is advisory in nature and it has no more than 2 members of the city council on it, the meetings are not required to be public. However, at the option of the audit committee, they may be public.
Well, I'm aware of in school districts, specifically our Long Beach School District, meetings of the audit committee are held publicly. So I think that we should, especially with the cloud over the city's finances, I think it would be very smart for these meetings to be held publicly and them to even be streamed, because that it's just right now with audits not being on time, with doubt over audit reports, I think it would be for confidence into the city's finances, this would be a smart thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Eddie, for your comments. We are implementing this audit committee according to the best practices as outlined by the Government Finance Officers Association, and they recommend having, not necessarily following the open meetings law, because there could be sensitive information that goes on during this process. This is also exactly what the presidents have asked for in terms of transparency and direct involvement by the city council members in the audit process. So the audit will not be signed off and delivered to the city council like that. We will be required to approve it. Also, the 2 members of the council that are on the committee will have to present the findings of the audit to the entire council so that they are fully apprised of everything that's going on. I think this will be a dialogue, and I look forward to working with you on it.
Thank you, Vice President. I think this is a good start for increasing confidence in the city. Thank you.
I'd just like to add that Vice President McGinnis is the one who initiated this, and I fully think it's a great idea. I appreciate the volume of dialogue that I have received with the controller business, because I am not waiting for a couple months down the road. I want to be prepared, and that's why I ran for city council, government finance, and the budget. But Vice President McGinnis was the one who really initiated this whole audit committee setup, and through Greg, we'll get it done.
And do we think that it's going to be, the audit looking like it's going to be on time this year?
Yes, we have full confidence in Ms. Resnick and her team to help us get the audit done. Otherwise, we'll keep you posted.
That's excellent, thank you.
Any other comments?
On to the voting portion. I just want 2 of the tables. Item 3 is a resolution authorizing the settlement of an action brought by Jennifer Hall against the city of Long Beach. Introduce move the adoption of this item.
I will. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Item 4 is a resolution authorizing budget amendment to the general fund budget for the 2019-20 fiscal year. Move the adoption of this item.
I will.
Second.
I will.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Finally, item 5 is a resolution to appoint a temporary audit committee and audit committee charter drafting team.
I will.
I will. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
City manager's monthly personnel report has been filed by the city clerk. Will you make a motion to close the meeting?
I will.
Councilor Mandel. Councilor Trust.
Yes.
Councilor McGinnis.
Yes.
Councilor Bennett.
Yes. Okay, I think everybody knows the drill, but you have 3 minutes. Okay, and first we have Ms. Vining. Ms. Vining.
First of all, Happy New Year and congratulations to our new council members and welcome back to our city council members. I came up here tonight because it occurred to me it's a new decade, and at the same time, LongBeachCOA has been in existence for an entire decade, or will be as of August. But it also occurred to us today that, well, I think you know about us. You may not. You may not know all about us, and I'm not going to sit here tonight and tell you all about us. But I will leave you with older. But I will also ask that we take another look at the continued active presence of the council on the Long Beach Coalition. Because when we had that, nothing was stopping us. And when we had that, we've achieved lots of legislative and policy initiatives. And Mr. Kalniski knows of some, I believe. Former Councilman Kelly, when he was on the council, came to every meeting. So I would ask that we have council presence, because part of what we do, or a big part, is policy and initiatives, and you can't do that in 3 minutes. I do it well, where you need to be part of the decision-making process, just like you outlined for the public to see your debate and your discussion. We did that with you so that we can work together instead of being adversarial. So, of course, you're going to get emails from me tonight, but I would really encourage you to, amongst yourselves, you're all welcome, always, but appoint one person or 2 people that will come to our meetings there. Wednesday nights, we give you pizza and we give you policy. Not bad. They're held at the Long Beach Middle School Media Center. So I would love a commitment from this council that you will again be the strong partner that you once were.
And you will email us the...
I email everybody. Always. And yes, I will. I can email you the list of meetings. I think Mr. Mandel knows that once you're on my email list, you're kind of never off. So you get notified. But again, what we would love, and what the entire coalition would love, really, and I've been in Long Beach a really long time, but this coalition has been in existence through the hospital, through not the hospital, through whatever. We have made a ton of policy and other impacts. I have a folder for each of you, as well as our acting city manager, and it becomes richer the more of us who are there. And for me, being a part of this for the past 20 years, this is the very first group in Long Beach that I can tell you has consistently met every month with about 20 to 25 people over 20 years.
I just have one thing.
Sure.
You say you meet Wednesdays at the middle school?
On Wednesday evening from 7 to 9.
Okay. And it's the first Wednesday of the month, the second, third?
Well, unfortunately, it doesn't work that way for us because we try really hard not to hit up against any major school calendar things, major city calendar things. But we do have the list for the year, and for the rest of the year, and I will certainly send that.
That would be helpful. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I see her out there in the hallway, Kathy Williams. I don't know.
Williams has finished speaking.
Okay, Pat Nugent.
I am not Pat Nugent. I'm going to swap with Mr. Nugent, just to give a little more continuity. Mr. Nugent is from Sunset Bay Adventures and Motorsports LBNY. He'll take my spot, if it's okay with you, Mr. President. Okay. Okay. Again, I wrote it out, so I would try to use the 3 minutes efficiently. Dennis Kelly, 120 West Park Avenue, Long Beach, New York, 01561. I represent Sunset Bay Adventures and Motorsports. Some of you already know that. I think almost all of you, except for Vice President McGinnis, I'm not sure you ever got a package from us. We get you a package. The reason why I'm up here is we're asking the indulgence of the council to sit and meet with us to discuss a project that's been pending now for over 4 years. A request for proposals went out in April in 2015, and then again in May of 2016, asking for proposals from vendors capable of operating a seasonal water service located in the city of Long Beach, adjacent to the city's recreation complex along West Bay Drive. Such services may include, but are not limited to, sunset cruises, water taxi operations, and other water-related activities. The sole bidder on both of those RFPs was Sunset Bay Adventures. They've spent a considerable amount of time and money to acquire the permits, one of which from the Army Corps of Engineers will expire on April 28th, 2020. So in about three and a half months. We want this new council to consider it. I don't know why it didn't go through the old council. We want to spend some time with you to discuss it. We have significant detail. We've increased the financial offer and payments to the city last month at a previous conversation. I think some now remaining members of that council wanted to wait for this council to consider it. So we just, like I said, ask for your indulgence and try to organize something so we can meet with you, discuss it, educate you, and then find out what it is that you want us to do or what you would like to see in the project. So where we call it B. It's a worthwhile project. This is about water, primarily about water taxi services, which is going to, it's already blossomed, as we know, in other waterways in the immediate area. It's going to blossom significantly with a loop that involves Point Lookout, Freeport, Merritt, and Island Park. And this project would enable the city to participate in that water taxi service loop. So I won't waste any more of your time. And when it packets up, he'll introduce himself and tell you who he is. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll contact you offline then, but maybe next week, Thursday's working meeting might be the time.
Oh, that would be great. I'll make time.
Okay. Eddie Barone.
Eddie Barone. Firstly, I want to congratulate the newly elected city council members, Delory, Treston, and Vice President McGinnis. And I also want to give a special congratulations to newly elected President Benda. I'm very happy with the changes that have already been implemented tonight, and I'm very happy with the way my questions about the audit committee were answered in direct answers to questions and in a civil tone is all we ask. And I appreciate the work and the strides just that occurred tonight. And as Councilwoman Treston said at her during her speech at the inauguration, that it's time that we bring out the bad people of the city, bring out those in the Wizard of Oz, as she mentioned. And I think that just listening to the people have the ideas on how that can occur, and that is a step in the right direction. But this council was elected on a mandate of change. That change begins with changes to the city charter. As I proposed in the September 20th, 2018 meeting, changes to the way the budget is approved and enacted are greatly needed. Firstly, the provision that allows the city manager's budget to automatically go into effect if the council does not approve a budget needs to be repealed. The city should adopt a system similar to the school district, in which if a budget is not approved, a 0% tax increase shall go into effect. Additionally, I believe there should be a binding referendum for any budget that attempts to pierce the tax cap. There should also be a prohibition in the city charter so that exempt employees cannot receive higher raises than union employees. Finally, the city council needs to reduce the power of the city manager. Currently, the city manager has the ability to appoint employees without the consent of the city council. This includes department heads down to seasonal workers. If the council wants to effectively oversee the city council should approve all personnel appointments as in the case of the school district. These changes, these good government changes, should be implemented as soon as possible. There is no need for outside counsel, and there is no need for delay. The people demand change, and if these changes are implemented, will begin to build a city free of corruption. If we want corruption to end, we need to change the charter now. Beyond these changes, the council should also consider eliminating the local development corporation, ensuring the audit report is completed on time, reviving dormant city commissions, creating new commissions such as a financial advisory commission, which I've supported in the past, and enforcing on-the-books quality of life laws. You got a lot on your plate, so thank you very much.
Eddie, can you please send us an email with all those recommendations?
Of course. Of course, and I also send my budget cuts that I proposed in the last 2 years in preparation for our budget season coming up.
Remember, I don't want problems, I want solutions.
Right, of course.
Can I make a comment? Mr. Verona, I welcome your comments. I agree with the charter. I spoke maybe last year at the budget hearing in May, where the budget, if it gets turned down, goes into effect. Right. That makes no sense. I proposed at the time, a thought pattern that if it falls to something, I put out as a tax cap, things like that. I do have to say that there are a lot of areas in the charter that need changes. It's not going to be simple, it's not going to be easy, but I fully support that aspect of revising this charter, which I believe in some cases still has the mayor listed as. So, thank you.
Yes, I think we should look in the future, not just, I think looking at the school districts, which New York State has implemented a lot more regulations for school districts and for cities, and that for a lot of good government ideas can come from our school districts. Thank you.
Kathy Levine.
State Street, Long Beach. I'd like to say welcome, welcome, welcome to the new council members. I represent a group of neighbors on East State Street, and we have a big issue here. It's a concrete monster over half a block long, covered with black mold, peeling paint, and a few broken windows. Insulation falls out occasionally on the street. Yes, it's the former Long Beach Medical Center, and it's a blight on an otherwise well-kept, neat and clean neighborhood. I suggest that in the coming week you take a field trip to observe the site for yourselves. When you do that, please take a good look and ask yourselves how you would feel if this was located across the street from your house. Mount Sinai, the owner of the building, claims they don't have the money to demolish the building. But consider this, they have $154 million of FEMA money originally meant for Long Beach, and their ads boast that they're investing $400 million in services. So I'd say that claim is a lie. They're planning to build medical offices on State Street in an area zoned for one-family homes. But the first step in any plan by Mount Sinai should be to demolish the Long Beach Medical Center. It's never going to be a viable hospital again. If my next-door neighbor abandoned her home and left it to rot and gather mold for 7 years, she'd be held responsible. The same should be true for Mount Sinai. Up until now, our hospital neighborhood group has not received any support other than sympathy from the city council, our senator, or our local legislator. Nor did our zoning board support us. They didn't want to do battle with an institution institution so powerful. But there is always the right thing to do, even if it involves challenging a powerful moneyed institution like Mount Sinai. I appeal to you to have this building torn down, not only because it's a dark stain on our neighborhood, but to show us that under your leadership, power and money will not win out over the residents of Long Beach. Thank you.
Good evening, Emil Barani. Firstly, I'd like to congratulate the new council, and I wish nothing but best of luck and success ahead of you. I have two questions in regards to the recently denied police department contract. Where exactly will the department be going now that the union refused to ratify it?
My understanding is there's going to be a meeting next week between the city and the police to discuss next steps. You know, see if there's common ground that everybody can come to.
Okay. My last question, Mr. Mandel and President Mendo, can you explain your vote on the police contract now that it's public? The contract didn't do enough to limit separation pay for new officials, which was capped at $275,000, which is not the necessary decrease that we need, in addition to a 24% raise over 12 years, with no noticeable reduction in sick days and vacation time, which is the core of the separation pay scandal. How exactly, looking back at it, did you think this was sustainable?
I can interject for just a moment. While that deal was rejected, we are still negotiating at the table. So I'm concerned with having council members make public statements that are the subject of collective bargaining negotiations. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, I hope you can understand, because the contract wasn't passed, there's still negotiations going on. So the comments need to be between our negotiator and their negotiator. It's sort of, I get why you'd want to know, it's obviously a public interest item, but we can't negotiate in the court of public opinion. It has to be done. There's a system in place they have to follow.
No, I'm familiar with it, but I'd just like to say for the record, in my opinion, I don't believe looking at it, it was a sustainable deal. And I'd just like you guys to know that. This is the root cause of the separation pay was the sick days and the vacation time. And the fact that it wasn't limited, and you still have ridiculously high separation pay, I don't know how this would be sustainable for anybody. Thank you.
You know, we just want to say that we remain committed to trying to work with the PBA to find an agreement that is viable for the police and ensures both the safety and financial stability of our city and residents. So we do hear you, but we have to continue under negotiations.
Thank you.
Okay, Brendan Healy.
Brendan Healy, representing the West End Neighborhood Civic Association, Committee on Standards and Quality of Life. Tonight I just want to update both the council and the residents on some of the work our committees have been doing, particularly with 3 liquor license applications in the West End. The first is with the former Whale Tail location, which is called Shake LBNY. So we've been working with the principal, it's actually the same principal owner of the beach house, which is just up the block. They have a really good concept. They want to really change the location, make it more of a restaurant concept, less of a nightclub, less of a party venue, but it will be a bar. We are working with them on stipulations like we normally do, and that is slated to hopefully open in the next couple of months. The next is going to be 780 West Beach. So this is the Island Time location. They had a beer, wine, cider permit. They now they're applying for a full on-premise liquor license. And that application just recently came through. Again, we've reached out to their attorney and to their representative and looking to get some information from them. And last but not least is 5 New York Avenue. This is Danny Mac's Ocean Bar and Grill. I think now it's called 5 Ocean. They were operating under a seasonal license. They applied for a full on-premise liquor year-round. And we have not been able to get in touch with them We did ask the council for their help and the city specifically to reach out to the SLA to advise them that the 30-day notification that was provided to the city was deficient because there were 3 issues with it. One was that the contact information was not correct. The second being that the representative listed no longer represents that client. So it's appropriate for the municipality to reach out to the SLA to request that the applicant provide a new 30-day notice in which we can, as a community, work with the applicant on conditions and learn more about their operation. It's pretty standard. We have a very good rapport with the SLA, have a good dialogue. And again, I think we've demonstrated that we've worked with the businesses and have received good feedback from many of the business owners. To date, over 70% of the bars in the West End do have agreements with us, and as they do come for renewal or new license applications, we work with them. And I think, if you speak to most of the business owners in the West End, they're very happy with the progress and the work that we've made. So that's just a quick update on the licenses, and any questions from the council?
Is Island Time going to stay predominantly a restaurant, or is it shifting more towards a bar?
So we don't know at this point. They've only submitted a 30-day. We did send them our questionnaire for comment. Their new name, at least from what we've seen in the application, I think it's called the Cafe LDNY. They are moving from beer, wine, and cider to full on-premise liquor, so to be announced. I'm not sure yet.
Is the application with Island Touch soon to be the cafe? The seating that is currently there now, isn't there a requirement, or is there a requirement for the amount of seats per counter? And if so, would you know that applicant, do you know what they're required, they're requesting? Or is that something, isn't there a formula that if you have a bar, or there should be a certain amount of seats available? I'm not an expert, so that's why I'm there.
There is language in the code today within zoning. I don't know off the top of my head, but I think you're right. There is some language around the size of the new bar, the amount of seats. I'll defer that obviously to the building department. But in terms of their application itself, what we have today is just a preliminary 30-day notice, which indicates that they want to have full on-premise liquor. We don't know much more at this point, but through our inquiry process, we'll find out more and work with them to get that detail.
If you need any assistance, I'd be happy to work with you towards that.
Great, thank you. And then I'm going to just leave this last item here with the council. I did email this as well, but for the record, this is the letter from the committee members of the Western Neighbors asking for the city's help in responding to the SLA. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Lester?
How does the city help Brendan with the SLA? Is there a formula? Do we write a letter?
As far as I know, every time that there is a SLA, or this is a new applicant, I think, but in the past, if you were a renewal, the state sends a letter out to the local municipality, police activities, number of, were there any incidents. If there's a multiple amount of incidents, I think the police department has to fill out some kind of form. You know, that's the document trail. And Mr. Healy, correct me if I'm wrong.
Judy's right there.
Judy, Mr. Lester, would you yield to this right hand?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Do I need to address?
There's a 30-day notice that's sent to the city prior to the application. At that time, the city has the right to do nothing, to lend its support, or to say, you know what, we've got 100 places you can buy alcohol, let's give money, maybe for nothing, which is what we have, by the way. Anyway, but what we do know is that if you say nothing, the SLA takes it as approval from the city and therefore thinks the city is in favor of the application.
Thank you, Ms. Finer. Thank you, Mr. Lester. And Mr. Healy, can you add anything?
Yeah, I'll make one last comment. So adding to what Judy had mentioned, right? The SLA does require the input of the community and the municipality. So they are required to have that input. We have actually met with the SLA down here as a part of the city about a year ago, right? So we had the deputy commissioner of the SLA, we had the deputy CEO of the SLA come meet with us. I think Mr. Taggy was there as well. Very good productive conversation. And the SLA has said they want the city's recommendation on these applications. We have filled that void in the West End. We've developed a process that I think has been very fair, that's received good feedback. However, with that, we're still looking for the city, right? So whether this ends up becoming a part of a committee or a commission, I think across the city, we need to have the opportunity, or we've had the opportunity to provide feedback. But to answer your specific question, to date, the city has not taken any formal position, and there's no mechanism in the city today to do what we're doing, right? So we do need that mechanism, right?
Thank you for your patience, Mr. Lester. I have to admit, being up in smelling this fresh wood, intoxicating. It's so nice. Anyway, I do have a letter I had emailed to you guys. It's basically about reinstating the ethics committee, which I think is very important. So I wrote it out, so you actually have a hard copy. And I also have to say, Mr. Healy brought up a really good point when it comes to Nelson and Pope. I think we have a real problem here. I was there last night when they were advocating on the part of the superblock developers, and yet we're hiring them. And I don't see why no one sees that as a conflict. We have attorneys who are advocating for the developers in this town, and yet they're representing us.
Just comment on that, Mr. Lester. Nelson Pope actually told me that they were representing Ingle Garment, and because Ingle Garment is intending to do a project as of right that's not going to go in front of the zoning board, I didn't view it as a conflict.
You might not, but the rest of the town looks at it, and I've heard a lot of people view it as a conflict. I know you might not, but a lot of other people do. So I just think it's something that should be considered, because it's not just here. When we heard they were talking, they represent developers, but Superblock, that's a big one, and they represent them too. Now, going into that, this North Park thing, the idea is great, but it's really great if you can have residents owning this property. And I do believe that there are a lot of programs out there where all we have to do is change the zoning so that not only is it required that it be affordable, but it's required that the owner occupy it. There are a lot of opportunities, economic opportunities right now by this being in an economic opportunity area. So this is, a lot of people would absolutely jump on it if they can, but sometimes it's tough to get the financing. So if we could go out, even for that matter, Long Beach could guarantee these loans because, it's all secured. It's all secured for this. These are money-making opportunities. There's no question about it. When you can have a two-family from what was formerly a one-family, and it seems to be a great idea all over the town for people who want to keep, we want Long Beach to be affordable. We want our kids to be able to afford to stay here. And if we changed some of this zoning so that people could, if they own the property, allow another additional unit, I think it would really, I understand there's a lot of reluctance to have two families in a lot of areas of the town. But on the other hand, if the owner is living there, I think it kind of changes the thing. And finally, I have to ask, I know you said you're still negotiating the police contract. Are we still having Kerry O'Neill doing the negotiating, or are we negotiating it on our own?
Again, I don't want to give out too much.
No, but Kerry O'Neill
The
can be
meeting next week will involve Mr. O'Neill.
Who is on the arbitration panel, therefore he has to
Right,
be
he's on
there.
the arbitration panel.
And as you know, as a lawyer, sometimes you have to go through the state to get someone off the arbitration panel. Unless you want to, advise us on how to do that.
No, you know,
We're working on it.
I would hate to have an arbitrator who you just fired as your attorney.
All right, Sam Pinto.
Sam Pinto, Long Beach. While I'd love to continue on that conversation, I'm going to hold off on my opinion. Two things just to continue on the North Park overlay. I just think also part of the research the city should take while reviewing that is looking into how many variances were granted by the zoning board since 2000 that were given a one-family to a two-family, to see if there's been a great outstanding request for that or need. So just looking into that as well. And one thing also to consider is how we scrutinize individual zoning requests and we set up a zone, a parameter around the areas of question and concern. I think if you're looking to find out if this area has a want or need, maybe have the zoning board do some sort of canvas that's similar to that to see if there's an actual want from the residents who live in the area right now. It'll get some good feedback, and similar to other zoning processes, you do that request, you may want to review that request for the people in that zone parameter that will be affected by these changes. Just another thought in that process. And lastly, thank you, Council President Bendo, on that update on the changes in orders and practices. One thing that I think would be a good step into transparency, it's something that I've had a lot of trouble with myself, is the FOIL process. I think that oftentimes some residents go up against the wall with the FOILs, and some people are able to get their FOIL responses done in a moment's time. I mean, for example, the news, or some people are able to get their FOILs written perfectly and responded within one day, while it takes residents, a week just to get the response of receipt. So if you can try to maybe expedite a review the FOIL process, or one idea which would have to be worked out would be to make the FOIL process public. So the requests, if the person who is making the request chooses to opt in, that FOIL request will be part of the public open access. So if someone is looking for information and it's already been FOILed, they wouldn't have to go through the 7-day waiting for receipt and the 30-day waiting of response. That information will be available already, because oftentimes the same question is asked multiple times, and then it's a burden upon the FOIL commission or the FOIL officer. So maybe an opt-in process. So one, if people are looking for public information, it should be available for everybody, not just a select few. And two, if they opt into that, and two, it'll also lower the burden, because I was told, oh, your FOIL request can't be answered right now because we're really busy. And the only recourse I have is to file an Article 78, but then that costs time and money, and oftentimes it's really not worth the squeeze. So people give up, and I hate to say it, but I think people in the past were waiting on you just to give up on your FOIL process and not activate it because it's easier for them. So just two recommendations, one on the public hearing, those recommendations, and two for an effort of transparency, reforming the local FOIL process if possible. Thank you.
John McNally. Okay. Jay Justler.
Good evening again, Joe Yosta. Not what I plan on speaking about, but to this gentleman's one last point about not being able to speak about the negotiations going on between the PBA and the city. It's my position that by bringing forth a resolution with proposed PD contract with the council, basically open the process up publicly. So I'm not really sure why we can now say that we can't speak about it, even to the point of even discussing whether or not we're still using the same attorney. That's an aside. I did want to say that in my 52 years living in the city, that few moments have instilled greater pride in me than what I feel here tonight as I look upon this council days. I see the proof that in the end, the will of the people ultimately prevails. For too long, our city leaders were enslaved to party bosses at the expense of good government. It's been that way for as long as I can remember. With the election of you, Karen, Liz, Mike, I believe that long, sad tradition has come to an end. For the first time in pretty much forever, I feel that we have an honest city council that will actually consider the thoughts and concerns of the residents and not just sheepishly follow what the party boss tells them to do. Knowing you all as I do, I have great confidence that you will, as a body, elevate the good of the city above your own personal or political interests. And I want to congratulate you on your win, wish you great success, and ask that you please, please, please do not let us down.
June Schechter?
Well, thank you, Mr. Vesta, for your comments. Thank you as well.
Hi, good evening. It's June Schechter, East State Street. Congratulations to the new members. And I'd like to say, please don't forget us in the Northeast Bay area. Of course, we're still upset about our situation with the hospital. And as Kathy was talking about, the monstrosity that is, it's really a derelict building. Although the hospital, Mount Sinai has said it's perfectly fine and they have plans to sell it. If it's perfectly fine and they have plans to sell it, why not use that space and develop it to the 500-year plan and make us a more resilient medical pavilion, which is really just doctors' offices. Any way you slice it, it's not a hospital at all. I was very interested in hearing about the environmental study that was done for the North Park overlay plan. I was wishing in my head, I was wishing that the hospital, Mount Sinai, would have done an environmental study and been transparent about it with us. Instead, I think it was really less than independent. And they said no traffic problems, there's not going to be any impact on the neighborhood, and we know that's wrong. Also, please don't forget about us in the bulkhead situation, because between Monroe and Neptune, that's held by the hospital, and they have no plans to improve the bulkhead, and we know that that area is repeatedly flooded by the bay, tidal waters coming in, even on a full moon. So my plea to you is please don't forget us in this area, and keep in mind that our quality of life is going to be greatly affected by this kind of land grab that happened between Mount Sinai, and our zoning board didn't support us, that they took over that residential area that had houses in it, and now we're going to be facing a monstrosity of a building that's going to be 25 feet high in the air, and not houses, not what used to be there. So please don't forget us. Thank you very much.
And that's it. Everyone get home safe, and thank you for coming.
Oh, really? Wow. I'm impressed. How was the baby?
Am I covered in salt?
Not much.
They said they did a good job.
I know. I already had to do my cards. There's all that everywhere.
It's on the benches today. The one lawyer lady that got up.
Yeah, I thought that's what I heard, that they put